Jake Tapper.
And I'm Dana Bash. President Trump has promised America a big tax cut for Christmas. Right now, the Senate is on the verge of a vote that could pave the way for his first major legislative victory or another major defeat.
But will it be a win for you and your family? Here to answer your questions, 4 senators whose votes will help decide whether this tax bill lives or dies. Republican Senators Ted Cruz of Texas and Tim Scott of South Carolina, and Democratic Senator Maria Cantwell of Washington State and Independent Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont.
Senators, welcome. And a reminder, you will get 60 seconds to answer questions from us and our audience, 30 seconds for responses and rebuttals. Let's start with your opening statements. You each have 1 minute. Senator Cruz.
Well, good evening. Thank you to CNN for hosting this once again. Thank you to Bernie and Maria and Tim for taking part in a substantive discussion of tax policy. Very soon, we're going to be voting on a major tax cut bill. And the big question is exactly what Jake just asked. Who are the winners under this bill? Well, let me tell you, if you're a taxpayer, this bill benefits you. Our objective, we should be working to cut taxes for every single taxpayer in America. If you care about jobs and wages, if you're a young person who wants more opportunity, if you want to see wages going up, you're a winner. Right now, America has the highest corporate tax rate in the developed world. This bill cuts taxes on small businesses and job creators, which the Council of Economic Advisors says will benefit every family by about $4,000 a year. If you're a parent, you're a winner. This doubles the child tax credit from $1,000 to $2,000. And if you want to see a brighter future for the next generation, cutting taxes and economic growth is the way to go.
Thank you. Senator Sanders.
Gee, Ted, what tax bill were you talking about? Surely not the one that's coming before the Senate. Here are the facts. Despite what President Trump says, despite what my colleagues here will tell you, the tax bills both in the House and the Senate give the lion's share of tax breaks to the top 1%. 50% of the tax breaks in the House bill go to the top 1%. 60% go to the top 1% in the Senate bill. Now, at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, when the rich are becoming phenomenally rich, when corporate profits are at an all-time high, while the middle class struggles and we have 40 million people living in poverty, who in their right mind, in all due respect, believes that we should give massive tax breaks to millionaires, billionaires, and large corporations? Here's something else. This legislation will grow the deficit by $1.4 trillion. Mark my words. Mark my words. The day after or soon after this legislation passes, if it does, we're going to do everything we can to see that it doesn't. These guys are going to come back. They're going to say, oh, my goodness, deficit is soaring. We've got to cut Social Security. We've got to cut Medicare and Medicaid and education and programs that the middle class and working class families desperately need. This is a disastrous piece of legislation. We've got to defeat it.
Thank you. Senator Scott.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here tonight. I grew up in a single-parent household, a mother who worked 16 hours a day as a nurse's aide, changing bedpans, rolling patients. When I think about tax reform, I don't think about the numbers. I think about the people who so often feel left out, stuck in the shadows, the people who often feel invisible. I have a message for those folks. We see you. Our goal in this tax reform conversation is to deliver your money back in your paychecks so that as my mother had to struggle paycheck to paycheck, those single mothers struggling paycheck to paycheck will be able to have more of their hard-earned money so that they can take care of their families and at the same time create an economy that creates the jobs of the future here in America, here at home. That's what this tax reform does.
Senator Cantwell.
Well, thanks to CNN for having this debate on a tough subject to tackle on TV. Raising taxes on the middle class is wrong, and that's what this bill does. It is also wrong to cut the corporate tax rate without having a promise of how that is really going to raise wages and impact productivity. Our economy needs to continue to grow, and we do need to work together to figure out how to do that. Spending this much money without focusing on the middle class and what's going to help them incur larger wage increases, help with health insurance, make education and housing more affordable is wrong. So much time and money is being spent on the tax breaks and not enough time and interest on where the investment goes. We are a great society in the United States of America, but we shouldn't be a 1% society. We should have an economy that works for everyone, and that's what we want to focus on, making sure that the resources we do have help us invest for the economy of the future.
Thank you, Senator Cantwell. The first question comes from Sharon Steffen. She's from Charleston, South Carolina. She makes around $23,000 a year. A new analysis from the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, as you know, says that Americans in her salary range could end up getting fewer government benefits under the Senate Republican plan. And she has a question for her home state senator, Senator Tim Scott. Sharon.
Hi, Mr. Scott. How are you?
Doing well, Sharon. How are you?
Well, what I wanted to talk about is the fact that I am a single mom of 4. It's not been easy. I take the lion's share of the financial responsibility, from driving a flatbed truck, running landscaping crews, anything I can do to bring money in. And from what I understand, like you said, you were raised by a single mom.
Yes.
And she had multiple jobs. So what I want to know is, how is this going to help other single moms if this goes through?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your work ethic. And I will tell you, much like my mom, sounds like you're setting a great example for your kids, Sharon. And God bless the Palmetto State, having folks like you in the state. I will say that there are a couple of ways that this plan benefits folks like yourself. Number one, we have doubled the child tax credit. It used to be $1,000. Now it's $2,000. That's a credit, not an exemption, which means that it's more powerful. So for 4 kids, that's an $8,000 credit. When we did our analysis on the bill, a single mother with 2 kids making about $41,000 would see her taxes cut by about 75% under our plan. With 4 kids, it's probably going to cut it even more than that. So the long story short is you get to keep more of your hard-earned money to make better decisions for your family. I think that's good news.
Thank you.
Senator
Can I
Sanders?
respond
Yes,
to that?
please.
Sharon, I wish what Senator Scott said was reality. Unfortunately, it's not. According to the Tax Policy Center, which is a nonpartisan tax organization, 87 million middle-class households would see their taxes go up by the end of the decade. Now, interestingly enough, what they did in their bill is they made the benefits that go to working people in the middle class temporary. But the corporate tax breaks are permanent. So I'm afraid to have to tell you, not only will your taxes likely go up, but when these guys are finished with cutting Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, education, and other important programs for working families, it is likely you and your kid will be in worse shape.
Well, patently false, number one. Listen, we can debate the issues, but we can't debate the facts.
That's right.
And here's what the Joint Committee on Taxation says. In her income bracket, her tax will go down, not up, down.
Well, speaking of the Joint Committee on Taxation, on average, what they say is the Senate Republican tax plan raises taxes on American families earning $75,000 or less by the end of the decade. That's what they say.
I'd like to bring in
Senator
Senator Cruz and Senator
Jack?
Cantwell.
One time, I think the word I'm looking for is hogwash.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
Then you better talk to the Joint
Well, let me
Committee.
just, this is the latest tax brackets from just last night. I'm not sure where your information is coming from, but the last proposal, I'm happy to share this with you, shows without any question, specifically to your question about your income bracket for your household, the answer is you will pay less in taxes than you did last year. Our proposal cuts your taxes. Anyone that tells you anything other than that is inconsistent with reality.
So one of the reasons that some of the projections from different studies have said that people under $30,000 might end up with a net increase is because of the repeal of the Obamacare mandate, which will mean that some of them won't be getting the subsidies if they voluntarily withdraw from it, but also that insurance premiums could go up by 10%. But Senator Cruz, I want to give you an opportunity to respond.
Let me take a little bit of time to unpack this, because there are a lot of numbers that have been thrown out that are completely bogus. The center that Bernie relied on is a left-wing group, and the reason they say 87 million people's taxes will go up is because he said by the end of the decade. Why? In 2027, all of the individual tax cuts are scheduled to expire. Why? Because the Democrats have promised to filibuster their opposing tax reform. I'd like to make the individual tax cuts permanent. Your taxes, as Tim walked you through, ma'am, your taxes, just your child tax credit, is doubling to $8,000. That's real money, but because the Democrats are filibustering it, that's not permanent. You know what? Bernie and Maria could join with us right now, say they'll stop filibustering tax cuts, and we could make those permanent for everyone. The facts are clear. We are cutting taxes for everyone, and it's only the Democrats' filibuster that makes it expire after 10 years.
Senator Cantwell?
Well, I'm so glad you're here because you represent a part of America that we need to be serious about. Your child care costs have gone up, and they have not been kept pace with the rate of inflation. That's why we should be helping you. But instead, they've taken a good idea in this bill, which is increasing the child tax credit, and instead expanded it to people making up to $500,000 a year. I don't think that we can afford to give people at $500,000 a year a child tax credit. I want to find all the people like you in the economy and help you meet ends for your family and continue to thrive. And that's where we should be spending the money.
Just if I may say, when Ted says that the Tax Policy Center is a left-wing group, it was founded by economists from Reagan, didn't think he was a left-winger, Bush 1, and Bill Clinton. These are people who are trying to do the hard, objective work, and what they say is that 87 million middle-class households by the end of the decade would see an increase in the taxes.
So, Bernie, true or false that Sharon's tax credit would double, child's tax credit would double?
You talk about filibuster.
No, true or false?
You talk about filibuster. The reason that what you guys have done is gone through so-called reconciliation. In other words, they are trying to pass this bill in an almost unprecedented way without asking any Democrats to become involved. If you want to do 60 votes, let's work together. You want tax breaks for the middle class? Let's work together.
But, Bernie, you know why that's not happening? You're right. Ronald Reagan in 1981 and 86 cut taxes. You had a Democrat, Tip O'Neill, as Speaker of the House. The person who carried it in the Senate was Phil Gramm, then a conservative Democrat. In the Senate, it was Bill Bradley, then a liberal Democrat. The difference from the 80s and now, we had Democrats willing to cut your taxes. Every single Democrat is unwilling to work with us. And in fact, you want to know the clear difference between the two sides in this debate and in the Senate? This is the third debate Bernie and I have done. In the last debate, Bernie was very explicit. He was very candid. He said he wants to raise your taxes. He wants to raise everyone's taxes. That's the difference. Ted? The Democrats want to raise your taxes.
To provide
and what the Republicans are doing is cutting your taxes. You're right. They want to raise your taxes, and then they want to spend your money. We want to cut your taxes and let you spend your money.
No, you want to cut taxes for the billionaires. Maybe you'll disagree.
No, we're talking about cutting taxes right there.
Tim, but here are the facts.
Here are the facts.
60% of the tax breaks you are giving your friend coming from your campaign contributors, the 1%.
Let's let Senator Scott have the last word, and then we have an audience question.
Sharon, let's just do simple math real quick. If you have 4 kids and your child tax credit is $2,000 each child, that's $8,000. We're taking your standard deduction that used to be $9,300. We're making it $18,000. In other words, $18,000 deduction, and then whatever your tax is owed, you have an $8,000 credit to reduce that tax. In other words, you'll be getting a larger refund under our plan.
Senators, thank you. We want to get to another audience question. George Silos is from New Jersey and says that his middle-class family would pay more under your Republican plan because it eliminates the state and local deduction known as SALT. Senator Cruz, this is for you.
Senator Cruz, I voted for you in the 2016 New Jersey presidential primary, in part because I saw you as a defender of conservative principles. This tax reform bill includes tax reductions for the wealthy in the form of the elimination of the alternative minimum tax and the federal estate tax. However, this tax reform bill also includes a large middle-class tax increase because it eliminates the state and local income and property tax deduction, otherwise known as the SALT deduction. Do you believe hiking taxes on the middle class is in line with conservative principles?
Well, thank you for your question. Thank you for your support in the primaries last year. Absolutely not. And you've highlighted what is my single biggest concern with the tax bill as it is now. I think on the business side, there's some very good elements. There are elements that help small businesses grow jobs, expand the economy, raise wages. Doubling the child tax credit is a good step. The biggest thing I think we need to improve, and that I'm working hard to improve, is lowering even further every taxpayer's tax bill. Now, when it comes to the state and local tax deduction, that predominantly benefits the very wealthy, which in any other circumstance, Bernie and Maria would say they don't support. Now, I don't think we should be subsidizing. We shouldn't be encouraging a state like New Jersey to hammer you with really high taxes. But we should only eliminate that deduction if we're lowering rates enough that your tax bill goes down. And that's the biggest thing I'm continuing to urge in the Senate is let's cut individual rates. Let's lower it so that every taxpayer is paying a smaller tax bill.
Senator, can I just follow up on that? You're obviously not comfortable with this. So if there isn't a change, will you vote yes?
So this is, as the nature of any legislation, this is an ongoing negotiation. You know, Bismarck said there are two things you don't want to see being made, sausage and legislation. That's true here. There are a lot of good elements in this. The biggest area we need to fix is this is reducing taxes for most people, but there are people in blue states, New Jersey, New York, California, that have really high local taxes who this is not helping enough. And I will say I find myself in the curious position of defending people from blue states and saying we should be cutting everyone's taxes, even if your local politicians are jacking them up on you. You know, what Reagan did, what Jack Kemp did, was across-the-board cuts for everybody. That is incredibly good for the economy, and it produces economic growth.